there seems to be a concerted effort to pass legislation penalizing or seeking to prevent the spread of disinformation. In the House of Representatives, at least 14 bills have been referred to the appropriate committees. In the Senate, at least 5. On its face, this effort seems like a good thing. But as they say, God or the devil is in the details. And some of the details are worrying. What is shaping up to be the main version in the House, House Bill 2697, authored by Majority Leader Sandro Marcos, may turn out to be a trap for free speech advocates, journalists, content creators. Hi, I'm John Nery, and you are in the Public Square. To be completely fair, the committees handling the bills have been conducting open hearings, consulting experts, and welcoming observers. Joining us today are colleagues in the anti-disinformation space who have taken part in some of those hearings. Carlos Nazareno, the Director for Rights of the advocacy group democracy.net.ph, and Janina Santos, the Philippine analyst of Doublethink Lab. Welcome, Naz and Jan, and thank you for joining us in the Public Square.
Hi, good afternoon. Happy to be here.
Thank you for having us. Good day, everyone.
Let me start by asking you for a sense of the lay of the land, right? If I'm not mistaken, at roughly the same point in the Duterte administration, only a handful of bills related to disinformation had been filed. Do you share my sense that there seems to be a surge of interest in Congress today regarding the issue of fake news and disinformation?
I think so. I think according to one of the surveys, it was a pressing concern for Filipinos.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And we also need to take into consideration how all of these disinformation incidents and campaigns are affecting national security, our political security as well. So I think our leaders are seeing the importance of having a bill to mitigate the threats of disinformation.
Not necessarily so intrigued, but is it possible that our legislators are concerned with fake news legislation now because they have their eye on 2028? Is that part of the equation, do you think?
I suppose so. And something I sort of noticed was that a number of the legislators who were there were people who were sort of trolled online.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So medyo mainit sa kanila yung fake news.
I see. So they have seen themselves as victims of disinformation. Did anyone see themselves as purveyors of disinformation? I'm glad that you brought that up, Nas. Maybe you both can give us an idea of what the committee hearings have been like so far. I'll start with Jan.
Well, first and foremost, I want to commend our legislators for trying to find an intervention within their mandates to, to look into disinformation, because we know that the impact is so big. In fact, the impact is so big that disinformation is in the national security policy. And what I feel from them is that they already have things that they want to do, but they want to verify it with experts as well as digital rights advocates if this is going to work. As you mentioned, the bills, there are several bills. Some of them have very concerning provisions. I feel that we need to push to make sure that these provisions don't get passed. But the general idea of having a legislation to support our fight in disinformation, against disinformation, is quite important. We just need to be able to communicate effectively that, hey, medyo may problema tong mga ganitong parts ng bill. So they do have a technical working group that we are part of, and hopefully we can have more discussions on that regarding the more problematic aspects of the bill.
Do you get the sense that dekahon na yung solution for them and they just want some buy-in from civil society, from digital rights experts, or they truly are looking for the right mix of solutions?
I think they're looking for the right mix. Pero malakas yung push for the Sandro bill dun sa February 4. So we were
The
suggesting...
February 4 committee meeting.
Yes.
Committee hearing.
So during the technical working group, we were suggesting additional measures taken from other bills and more suggestions from the technical working group members. Pero medyo may pagka locked in yung sense ko. Kasi the chair of the committee said we should focus on the mother bill.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to spend most of our time talking about that so-called mother bill, no? So this is the Sandro Marcos bill, HB 6297, 2697. But let me ask one or two more questions about the committee hearings. Did anyone, either from the committee members or from the experts who were invited to speak, bring up international exampple or pointing to Singapore or another country? If I remember my reading of the 14 of the 12, I've read 12 of the 14 House bills. The one of Brother Eddie Villanueva says something about fines in Germany or in other countries and so on. Was there an attempt to draw the international context for disinformation?
I don't really remember, pero there might have been a mention of Singapore somewhere. Singapore, may pagka-draconian dun yung
yes.
anti-false news
Yeah, that's right.
bills, right?
Yeah. So, what was the sense that you got that when the Singapore example was mentioned, it was positively mentioned? Like, we should do something like what Singapore did, or maybe that's too draconian. Janica?
I don't quite remember it, but definitely in the bills that are being tackled, there is an inclusion of foreign interference. So I think that for their part, inaral din nila yung konteksto ng not just local disinformation, but of course the possibility of foreign actors working in the Philippines and spreading disinformation. In terms of the discussion on the on laws for other countries, it's not much tackled. I think nabanggit nga yung Singapore, but during the hearing itself, I think hindi siya masyadong na-discuss.
Yeah, in passing lang if
In
it was
passing lang siya.
it was mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for bringing up FIMI, no? Foreign intervention and manipulation. We'll set aside time later to also talk about that and whether these bills address that kind of threat to national security. Let's zoom in on 2697. No? I find it interesting that the explanatory note of the president's son, mentions Western sources, no? Oxford Dictionary and another source. But in the end, he says this bill is based on a previous bill filed by Congressman Rufus Rodriguez, actually towards the end of the 19th Congress, right? So in fact, it is an almost word-for-word refiling of that. So 2697, the committees are referring to it as the mother bill. But Rufus Rodriguez refiled his previous bill, right? There's another number for that. And then at least four other congressmen filed bills that were exactly the same. So I'm just wondering politically what this means. No? I mean, are they deferring to Sandro Marcos because he's the majority leader? And does this signal that it will pass? That it will have the votes necessary? I just wanted to get an idea of the politics behind it. What do you see?
Well, I'm not really too familiar with the politics in the House, but to that point, Representative Antonino Roman's bill is also a modification of the bill that his sister filed during the previous Congress. So may mga ganun mukhang.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll also we should set aside time also to talk about the Roman bill because it has a very interesting approach, which is different from the Sandro bill and the 5 other duplicate bills. Okay, so let's talk about the mother bill. No? John, let's talk about the red flags. What's concerning about the Sandro Marcos bill?
There are several concerning provisions. I think it's a very good attempt to try to incorporate national security in the context of disinformation. I do agree with that, but the problem is the definition of national security itself is very broad. Siguro when we think of national security, we say West Philippine Sea, terrorism, but then the definition itself and the national security agenda itself also encompasses social cohesion, cultural cohesion, and all of those things. So the bill itself, if it wants to include national security as a core concept here, needs to really define what it means by national security and needs to limit what this applies to. In one of the recent, it was a Senate hearing. I was not able to attend, but I was able to watch a part of it. Some of the lawmakers were saying that should we consider, for instance, character assassination as a national security issue? And this is actually quite a valid. It's a valid question kasi sa investigations namin on disinformation, there are narratives that are targeting, for instance, the President of the Philippines. Sure. But where do we draw the line between a national security concern when it comes to attacking the reputation of, say, the President or the VP or the SP and legitimate criticisms against these elected officials? So that's just one thing.
That's right, yeah.
So we need to really be specific on what do we mean by national security in the context of this information. As I mentioned, it's also in the national security policy, the current one from this administration, but it's not extrapolated well pa rin. We need to be very careful when we securitize things like this because that means that once we securitize it, then we're going to have our security people coming in and really doing a lot of things in this space. And would that be good for our digital rights?
I mean, from our own relatively recent historical experience, we can see that national security has been used to cover all sorts of, a multitude of sins, right? Or supposed sins. So it can cover almost anything. And of course, in other countries' experience as well, national security can be, just criticizing the president.
Yes.
Right? That can be considered a national security matter. So, do you get the sense that the definition can in fact be narrowed down?
Yes, definitely. I believe that the security sector should be part of this, given the impact of disinformation on traditional security issues like the West Philippine Sea. Disinformation has been used as a tactic also by terrorist organizations, so relevant din siya sa internal security natin. But we need to be very careful in just putting these concepts in a law, especially when it's as broadly defined or broadly used as in the current bill. So definitely that's something that I would personally like to advocate for. Let's include them, but let's be very careful with how we use national security as a concept.
Question, and of course Nas can join the discussion also. When we're talking of national security, do we want people to be able to? Okay, let me rephrase. Should we in fact think of 2 pieces of legislation? Because in national security concerns, what we are protecting from disinformation is the state.
Yes.
Is the government, right? But many other provisions in the proposed bills seek to protect society, ordinary citizens. Should we, in fact, maybe try to separate national security from other concerns and maybe end up with 2 bills, 2 laws?
It's possible. It's something that we can consider. We also do need to consider foreign interference. But there are overlapping concerns. Say, for instance, I think one of the most pressing concerns is the definition of social media itself that makes that makes the application of the bill very, very broad. And I think Naz would be able to explain
Can you
it
talk about
better.
that? So that would be another red flag, an overbroad definition of social media.
So social media, as defined, is very broad. It includes stuff like message boards, instant messaging apps, multiplayer games, online multiplayer games. So anything that shares content, you create content, share it, whether images, text, or audio. So malawak na malawak yung definition niya. It's bigger than just Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter.
But if for the sake of argument, this information also courses through those channels, let's say through multiplayer games and so on, why should we prevent the government from including it in the definition? Why is it a red flag?
It's going to be very hard to police. So number one, a lot of those platforms do not have Philippine entities, and it will be difficult for them to put up a Philippine entity, especially the smaller ones. And then a number of the bills.
By Philippine entity, you mean
a juridical,
a legal entity with
person.
offices in the Philippines that you can serve,
Yes.
legal summons on and so on. Okay, all right.
The other thing is that a number of them are not as big as the big platforms, so they have less resources to police their own platform. So, for example, if I'm just a hobbyist with a message board, I don't have the capability to monitor everything if I'm just serving a small community.
Yeah.
So, mga content moderator, etc., medyo dehado.
Speaking of content moderation, it seems to me that the philosophical approach of this bill and the duplicates is really more of content moderation or regulation. They see this information as content and say, okay, we should make sure that we are not harmed by this kind of content. Unlike, for instance, the bill proposed by Congressman Roman, which places the responsibility on the platforms, right, and seeks to sanction the platforms if they are irresponsible or something happens on their platforms. Anong tingin mo sa Congress? I mean, are they ready? Are they ready to accept a different approach to this? Just judging from the 12 of the 14 bills that I've read, I think only 2 have a focus on platforms. All the rest are, let's regulate content, let's penalize people who publish harmful content and so on.
From what I see, the bills are indeed looking into content moderation, which we think is not the way to go, given the current ecosystem nowadays. And ang maganda rin po doon is the ones that were invited also spoke of how we should be careful with content moderation. Even the intelligence agencies, even the uniformed personnel, they were very concerned about it. And what I feel from Congress is that they are willing to listen. During the first hearing that we attended last December, it was brought into the fold that we should be talking about inauthentic coordination, coordinated inauthentic amplification. From a research perspective, doing disinformation research, we know that it's not the narrative itself, but the reach of the narrative that has the impact. So if we're just targeting narratives, that's not really going to be enough. So we need to really shift the view from narratives, from content to manipulative and deceptive amplification. And I think it has something to do with algorithms as well.
Okay. Earlier, you said that you are quite optimistic that enough congressmen will change their minds about the definition of national security, maybe narrow it down usefully. Do you share the same optimism as far as the definition of social media is concerned? O medyo locked in na sila dun?
I think it's not locked in. It's more of a problem of the definition mismo. Because it's very hard to put into words na ilimit lang siya sa Facebook, etc. So maybe something that can help is the concept of very large online platforms.
Okay.
So VLOPs. They're the ones which have millions of reach audience.
That's right.
So if we restrict certain stuff to those, it may help because they're the ones that really amplify the bad narratives when they happen.
And Congressman Roman's bill addresses that, right?
Yes.
Very large. What about content moderation and shifting their views? Do you think there's cause for optimism there?
I think there is. So one of the things that was brought up during the hearing is that content is not necessarily just true or false anymore. So it's not a black and white thing that we can say, oh, ito factual, so let's keep this. Or ito, this is false. We have concepts of information manipulation already, the gray areas that we can't fact check. And I think Naz did speak about it during the hearing, and they were very receptive to that. It's a reality of that's more than disinformation na. Hindi na lang truth-telling yung kumbaga, hindi na lang siya truth-telling. We need to look into, is it weaponized truth? Is it truthful, but is it used to hurt people, to hurt our nation, for instance? So those are considerations that we're talking about in the technical working group. So they're receptive to it.
Can you talk about that? Maybe give some examples of gray content.
Yeah, on that point kasi, I think we've seen that some of the naughtier people online have shifted their narratives kasi napalo na sila. Like some have been served cyber libel suits, etc. So they're now more careful about what they say, that they're not explicitly false. So for example, when you say the Philippines will become the next Ukraine if we push back against China, it will lead to war. That's something that you can't really fact check because it hasn't happened yet. So with those kinds of narratives, I think there are gaps in these laws which cannot address them, and yet they're very harmful to society and to our sovereignty.
Are we hoping that these bills or the law that will emerge out of all of this will address those gaps, or it should not be addressed by legislation? What is our response to gray content?
I think the response there is to police not necessarily the adjudicator of truth model, but to penalize reach. So we look at amplification. So with coordinated inauthentic behavior, the troll farms, the click farms, the engagement farms, the ones that are artificially boosting content. We need to go after those bad actors more, rather than going after truth or false, misinformation, disinformation. We should also look at the algorithms because what the platforms are doing is that they're technically curating what appears on your feed. So in the States, they have the platform shield, wherein ang pinipenalize is the person who said the misinformation or disinformation, but not the platforms themselves. They have a law that's shielding them. We don't have that in the Philippines. So it's something that we can maybe look at to hold the platforms more accountable.
Yung term na coordinated inauthentic behavior, if I'm not mistaken, that's a term of art from Facebook. And in fact, some of the Duterte bloggers or vloggers had been imposed penalties, no, because of coordinated inauthentic behavior. So it doesn't mean Facebook doesn't look at the content, right? Yeah. But at the way the content was put together, it's like it's impossible that this was a creation of humans because it's too many, too fast, too soon, that sort of thing, right? But that would still require the participation of these platforms. Were the platforms present in these committee hearings, and what did they say?
Yes, TikTok and Facebook Philippines were there. So there was a mention of auditing the algorithms in the first hearing. There's something about algorithmic transparency. But the view of one of the platforms is that if they reveal their algorithm, it's going to be a cat and mouse game, because the bad actors they're going to know how to game the algorithm if they know how it works. So mas ma-amplify yung reach nila. And then whenever the algorithms change, which they do every so often, medyo mahirap din yun. So cat and mouse game.
But what about the idea of establishing a Philippine entity and so on? Did they respond? Did any of them respond to that?
They say that they have a country representative, so it was not a clear-cut response. But they said that they do have a Philippine representative, and the law enforcement agencies actually get in touch with them in order for the platforms to do the takedowns.
Okay.
Although from the hearing, ang lumalabas is it takes some time before. So they prioritize the takedowns. They look into very harmful content for something that would affect national security, women's rights, I suppose, ASAEC and such. Those are the priorities, but even if they're priorities, it takes time for them to take it down. And as you did mention, the particularly for Meta, they're more concerned about behavior than content. So if something is spreading and they don't have evidence of CIB, I think it takes more time for them to take it down, as opposed to if there's a lot of CIB already. And the thing is, with what's happening right now, some of our observations is that there is a lot of CIB, but there's also a lot of authentic actors that are amplifying deceptive messages. So it's a combination. So definitely, our thrust is to focus on the CIB, which is really magnifying yung reach ng mga deceptive behaviors.
On that point, the thing is, using computer algorithms, you can sort of detect CIB, as opposed to fact-checking, which you will need human intervention. Some stuff can be trained via machine learning, pero the nuance has to be there for me. Marami siyang hindi nahuhuli. So there are a lot of false positives when people post stuff. Some are mistakenly taken down, and some that should be taken down aren't being taken down. So I believe Facebook focuses on the behavior because it's something that the algorithms can detect.
Circling back to the question about red flags, no? So definition of national security, definition of social media. What other red flags stood out for you in the Sandro Marcos bill? You spoke earlier of adjudicator of truth. May provision ba na ganon na somebody will be acting as the judge of truth?
There was a discussion during the hearings about who should be the adjudicator of truth. Should it be government? Should it be the private sector? Should it be the courts? So my view there is that it should be subject matter experts. So with government, it's a very slippery slope and dangerous one. If they're going to be the one who's saying this, what is true or false. There's one of the bills there which has a sort of Ministry of Truth.
The Digital Truth Office.
Yeah, under the DICT, I think.
That's right.
So that's a very scary Orwellian concept. The other thing that was said, I think it was Sir Aboy Paraiso from the CICC. He said that it should be the courts who will determine what is true or false. To a certain extent, yes, but when we come to fact checking and the deluge of information that needs to be checked, our courts are already overloaded. They cannot be deciding on minor things that are not as of consequence. And then there's also the concept of the Digital Media Standards Coalition.
Okay. So I think that's in the Roman bill, right? What is the Digital Media Standards Coalition?
So it's a body that's composed of government, civil society, and private sector and journalists. I think yung sort of analog niya is the Facebook Oversight Board. So I kind of like the concept. They're meant to be para hindi lang government, may participation yung private sector and civil society. The only thing about it is that the Digital Media Standards Coalition was already created in May last year. So the bill seeks to accredit them as the body that will be the government accredited body to do these things. And there's a provision there that says the DMSC will be the one that will be accrediting fact checkers. So in a way, it will be government accrediting a body that will accredit fact checkers. So by transitivity, it will be government that will be accrediting fact checkers, which is for me a bit problematic. So
yeah, there's no direct equivalent to the Sandro Marcos bill in the Senate. Or to the Roman bill in the Senate. But the SB 1670 by Senator Rafi Tulfo also proposes the creation of a Digital Media Integrity Council, which I guess has to do with the adjudication of truth as well. No? But, I mean, it really is problematic, right? So, for instance, if you have as we saw during the pandemic, no, an infodemic, right? Of so-called experts on anti-vaccine and so on. How do you judge the truth of that? Courts would be, as you said, bogged down. It would be too late to respond meaningfully. You would need subject matter experts.
One problem there also is that even if you bombard people with facts and science and data, they have cognitive dissonance. And dito talaga, it's what in their gut and hearts that they go with rather than the science.
Yeah.
So it's really a matter of reach then.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear. No? Another side of disinformation research has shown, I think conclusively, in my view, that it's cognitive psychology and behavioral economics, all those things put together that enable a person to respond. So the response might not be rational or reasonable, but it is logical in a way in that it's a person using his evolutionary habits of survival responding to that, right? So I mean, I think that's quite clear. That's not addressed in any of these bills, right?
This is why we say that fact-checking is important, but fact-checking is not the only strategy. We need to find other ways to be able to build resilience against disinformation and manipulation. Because at the end of the day, the heart is stronger than the mind. Pumapag-ibig po. Mas mabigat ang pag-ibig kaysa sa utak.
Okay. May mga hugot line para dito sa ano.
Yes, so hugot is actually part of how people are manipulated into thinking a certain way. So even if you present them with facts, it doesn't work because the heart says this is right. And even if you're presenting me with numbers, you are wrong.
Any congressman bring that up at all? I mean,
I don't remember. Sorry.
I think their focus was more on content moderation and platform accountability and inauthentic amplification.
Any other red flags in the Sandro Marcos bill? I mean, I saw that. I think it's the only one that has, and then it was duplicated in 5 other bills, that has a set of aggravating circumstances.
Yes.
Right? And it turns out that my profession, journalism, is an aggravating circumstance. First of all, how does that work in the bill?
So it says that the maximum penalty shall be imposed if any of the following aggravating circumstances are present. So that's if you're a public officer, elected official, journalist, or social media influencer with 50,000 or more followers or subscribers who knowingly leverages their platform to spread disinformation. So the punishment...
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's going to have a chilling effect on journalists. And then the punishment is really, really severe. So the punishment is supposed to be 6 to 12 years. And if you say maximum penalty, that's 12 years for a journalist. So
And then there's a fine.
yeah, and there's a fine
As much as 2 million pesos, yeah.
Yeah. So what if you have an adversarial government who decides that you were malicious in this? So that's gonna be really bad. 12 years.
Yeah, and another thing is yung isang provision on foreign aid.
Okay.
So we understand that foreign aid could be used to for a government to interfere with another government.
That's an aggravating circumstance.
That's an aggravating circumstance. But at the same time, we need to be careful with how we look at it, because there's foreign aid that's actually very helpful, particularly for improving media in the Philippines.
Yes.
So if this government, for instance, is anti-state aid, they can say that, oh, state aid bringing money to, say, Rappler, that's an aggravating circumstance, and then we can say that what Rappler is saying is disinformation. So we need to be careful with these kinds of aggravating circumstances, because it could really be used as justification for clamping down on media.
It's another weapon.
Yeah, it's another weapon.
What do you think will happen? I understand that there's a deadline of February 26. What are we looking at in the next several weeks or months?
Well, the good thing is that the TWG is very open.
Yeah.
So they've been very receptive to our comments there. The chair was really listening and taking our comments into consideration. So I think the people who are there need to come to a group chat and hash things out
Yes.
and discuss things para maayos yung comments na isasubmit so that we have really good bills.
Yes.
Because currently these bills that are being served, there are good stuff and there are not so good stuff. So hopefully we can come up with a mix that will serve the public better.
What about anonymity?
Oh.
Is it an aggravating circumstance? Is it one of the prohibited behaviors?
In some of the bills, I believe there's an element of needing to register with the government. And Senator Tito Soto said last Friday that there should be, his proposal is that one account per user only. So
that sounds problematic as well.
yeah. So
Not only for those who play games, and
Yeah.
need another account.
So with social media registration, a big problem there is cybersecurity.
Yes.
Because to verify a user, social media verification, you need to you usually need to give IDs to the platforms. And for example, Facebook was fined millions of euros in 2022 for 12 data breaches. And in 2019, they had a leak from a data scraping attack wherein nag-leak yung phone numbers, full names, I think marital status, hometown, etc. And you don't want that data out in public. So those provisions, if maybe in some of the bills, if they're implemented, they can actually put the public in more danger than protect them.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's an instance of malinformation or
Yes.
potential malinformation, right? So correct information, for instance, a medical diagnosis, but then released in order to cause a party harm,
Yes.
right? Or credit card or debt information, right? I mean, that's correct information, but you don't want that shared worldwide, right? So that would be an instance of malinformation. I was happy to note that many of the bills share a common definition of disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. So at least there's some progress there. I mean, we're talking about some of we're using the same language in describing reality. Any other red flags I mean, the foreign aid part is also very troubling. Like, for instance, if you are invited by a German political foundation to give an honest analysis of Philippine politics, it's very possible that a politician can use that bill, which let's say it's become a law. It has a provision on discrediting of this democratic institution.
Yes.
And very quickly turn that around, accuse you of discrediting Philippine democracy. And then there's an aggravating circumstance that you did this, you received foreign aid. You were flown to Kuala Lumpur, for instance, and you gave this talk. It is very concerning, right? Do you think there is sufficient pushback already against these two provisions? O kulang pa?
Kulang pa. Kailangan pa i-discuss tsaka i-disseminate sa stakeholders.
I think they're doing this as a way then because we've noticed a lot of foreign interference in the Philippines for the past few years.
Let's talk about that.
So I think it's their response to that. It's just that, and I appreciate the sentiment of putting these things in place to protect us from foreign interference, but we need to be very aware of how this can be weaponized against our own people. Foreign aid is a way of influence that is something that we can all agree upon, but influence does not necessarily mean harm. So when does foreign aid become harm? I think that's a topic to be touched upon para mas precise yung ano natin. I think we've always had the term about using a sledgehammer when you could be using a scalpel, and for these things we need to use a scalpel. It should not be blunt force trauma, but it should be very precise cuts for us to be able to make sure that we're really protecting ourselves from foreign interference and not just creating more problems in the future. So more pushback, definitely.
Aside from the foreign aid provision, in the aggravating circumstances section, is there anything there that specifically addresses foreign interference? Information manipulation? Parang wala eh. Parang yun lang. Parang, well, aside, I guess, from national security, but again, that's very broad and not necessarily focused on FEMI, but parang kulang actually, that part. Do you share that view?
The only thing I saw was actually that. And again, I do appreciate the sentiment, but we need to work on the details. I believe that Congress is also looking into passing laws on foreign interference. So perhaps there could be a joint session to discuss this if there is about the overlap of foreign interference and disinformation and information operations.
How should we phrase it? If, for instance, it were part of this bill becoming law, how should we phrase fighting back against foreign information manipulation and interference?
Marami pong terms. So normally the terms are information operations. Meron ding foreign information operations or foreign influence operations. But an emerging term is foreign information manipulation and interference. So ito po talaga, one of the biggest things that we look into is not just the narrative, but the problematic behavior of a foreign state trying to influence another state, in this case the Philippines, para ma-advance yung agenda nila. Ang problem dito is, of course, we have issues on coordinated inauthentic behavior. That's a very big thing that we've been noticing. But they also have their proxies. So the proxies could be real people that are essentially amplifying and seeding propaganda and the official stance of these foreign states. So I think that's also something that we can consider. So the Marcos bill does have the foreign aid part, but that does not encompass how big foreign influence operations is, in the Philippines is when it comes to information po. So I think that's something that they should be considering, or at least there could be like maybe a separate piece of legislation addressing that. Ang alam ko po is that the National Security Committee is discussing foreign interference, but I don't know how far they've gone to into information manipulation.
If the framework were platform accountability. Would that be a better approach to foreign interference?
It might
Better
be,
than content moderation?
It might be because if we're addressing the behavior, from what we've noticed, the amplification is what's actually affecting the reach, not just the narratives. The narratives are very powerful, but if it doesn't go anywhere, if it stays within a bubble and it doesn't break out, then it's not as effective as the threat actors want it to be. So if the platforms can step in and help us with limiting the reach of these deceptive content, then I think that would be a very good strategy. But then it's not like this over that, but it has to be a combination of different strategies for us to effectively mitigate the impact.
So the path forward, content moderation versus platform accountability versus, are there other frameworks that maybe they should, our congressmen and senators should be?
I think there should be a little more emphasis on looking at troll farms, click farms, engagement farms, because we did an investigation recently on a forged National Endowment for Democracy memo, which is being spread. And then in our investigation, we came up with metrics to measure how authentic or inauthentic certain accounts were. And for example, isa lang yung friend, tapos post ng tuloy-tuloy na halos wala siyang audience. Nagko-comment, ganun. So around 12 to 16% of the sharers and commenters of the particular narrative that was false, that was being spread, were highly likely inauthentic accounts. But currently, we don't have a framework to punish that. And with troll farms then, there were two outfits, mga PR firms daw, that were sort of outed in public. And then the local disinformation fighting community is sort of at a loss about what can be done against them. So with more explicit laws that sort of outlaw or penalize such behavior, I think that will limit the spread and the impact of these influence operations. Another thing, click farms. Ang pwede siguro, what can also be done in this respect is something like anti-money laundering laws. Because click farms and engagement farms, they explicitly advertise on social media and on the internet. So through that, you can sort of create a money trail because may GCash sila, etc. So pwedeng habulin through that mechanism.
Question, can a troll farm or a click farm do something good? I mean, or by definition, it is a negative conduct which we should discourage?
That's a very good question that we have been debating about. Because, for example, if there should ever be an extremely oppressive government, and then some certain sectors would want to push back and amplify messages, it's a gray area. So I'm not comfortable judging it right now. But for now, it's something I think we should steer against doing if you're one of the good guys. So
because you can be somebody else's bad guy, right? I mean, very quickly the winds of political fortune can change.
And for example, one of the arguments I make when some of my friends are supporting a certain political ideology, I tell them, kung matino talaga yung sinusuportahan nyo, bakit gumagamit ng troll farms and inauthentic accounts? So, if I go by that argument, it's a bit off to use troll farms for good.
Okay, so this is a 10-year-old analogy, no? Because in the 2016 elections, I interviewed someone who was part of the social media operations of the successful Duterte campaign. And for instance, in Cebu, it was a network of about 1,000 accounts that moved from one presidential candidate to Duterte, right? So at the base, it was a considerable base, like 1,000 accounts. These were real people. They knew each other and so on, and that was the basis of, at least for that particular hub in Cebu, in the Visayas. They use that hub to spread their campaign, right? So I think it was described to me as we had our social media operation was a network of networks, right? First, we're talking about a different thing here, like like it could be one person with 100 phones or whatever. So that is questionable, right? But you don't want to shut the door on this. I mean, siguro parang ang hirap pag-usapan. It's hard to get really clear on this because things can be weaponized very, very quickly.
I'd like to make a distinction.
Okay.
There's this thing called brigading, wherein genuine people with known faces and accounts, they sort of collaborate to boost stuff.
Okay.
Like let's say, supportahan niyo naman si ganyan, etc.
Or like, vote for your favorite K-pop star.
Yes.
So these are real fans, right? Yeah.
So I think that's okay.
Okay.
That's generally, depends on what they do sa brigading because some of them like do mass reporting to take down an account.
Okay.
Medyo foul yun. Pero the thing that we're against is deceptive forms of behavior wherein you're pretending to be real people and then you do these brigading tactics.
It's a cliche to say this, but we're in a brave new world, and I think one of the things that you both are very concerned about is legislating something that becomes a little permanent, or is in the books for the next 10, 20 years, when the landscape has changed several times, right? So maybe my last question to you both: what can you recommend? Through the technical working group to the committees in the House and in the Senate that will allow us to stop the spread of disinformation and yet not tie us too much when disinformation has mutated into something altogether. I'll start with Naz and with John.
So I really recommend looking more into reach and amplification through either inauthentic means, coordinated inauthentic means, or platform accountability.
Okay.
Because the bad actors have really shifted a lot away from clear-cut true or false, stuff that can be fact-checkable, to gray zone areas.
All right. Like what you said, no? We can be the next Ukraine, which promotes a spirit of defeat, right? And of course, will have an impact down the road. And Jan?
I guess as an analyst, the required answer from me is to look into the trends and the behaviors and try to counter that. So going back, I do agree with what Naz said about looking into deceptive behavior, inauthentic behaviors, and amplifications, and having a piece of legislation that would address that. But at the same time, legislations are not just pieces of paper that would punish behavior, but would empower behavior. So what are the empowering things that we can do to build our resilience? We have to go back to improving critical thinking among young people, go to that demand that they have something on critical thinking and digital media literacy and also AI literacy. That's a very big thing. We have to contend with the fact that we need to adjust to the technology. The technology is not going to adjust to us anymore. We need to find funding to improve our media because the media is in the forefront of fighting disinformation. We need to give more support to the media, not clamp down on them when they're trying to do their jobs. That's important. We need to empower them with better technology, better analysis, better access to government funds and government resources if that's possible. If not, then let them do their work. Give them media freedom, give them protection so that they can fight back against disinformation. We need to put together an actually inclusive group of people that are in the forefront of fighting disinformation for them to advise the government on what's going on outside, on changes in technology, on other interventions that we can do. All of those things could be empowered by a really good piece of legislation. So if we move away from not move away, but if we include empowerment along with punitive measures on these fake news bills, then I think that we will have a very good legislative foothold in this fight against disinformation.
Like maybe funding for media information literacy, which will do inoculation theory.
Yes.
And then one more thing that's very important. Once a bill is passed, it's very, very difficult to have it modified or repealed. For example, the Cybercrime Prevention Act and cyber libel, it's been weaponized a lot.
Yeah.
So the stakeholders really need to get together and discuss these bills before they become law and before they become bad laws.
I wonder, as a last word, if it's possible for us to convince our legislators to pass a law on fake news that has a definite shelf life.
I think that
what we did with the pandemic laws and, for instance, with the EDCOM 2 law, no? Which created it and it's funded it for 3 years. No? So maybe like, let's do this for 2 years, let's study and so on, and then so there's a stop built into the law. I think that might assuage some of our concerns. Carlos Nazareno of Democracy.net PH and Janina Santos of Doublethink Lab. This has been most helpful and clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for us today. The challenge for engaged citizens in our country remains the same: to fully inhabit the democratic space and to defend the democratic project. Please download the Rappler Communities app and join the chat room of your choice. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Rappler Plus. Thank you. This is John Nery. See you in the public square.